Welcome to the swamp. Grab your masks and spears. We're diving into a tribal, yet post-apocalyptic, fantasized Aztec setting to become the strongest tribe in the land. I had this game on wishlist for a while. In fact, I kind of forgot about it until the marketing kicked in shortly before the early access launch, where the information blew up. Now into the early access, let's dive right in and see what Soul Mask is all about. My name is Excalligator. I rate games based on many categories that would fit into most survival games, based on a 1 to 5 system. If a category does not apply, it will not affect the game's overall score. Now let us get started. Soul Mask is an open-world survival sandbox with some mild RPG elements, where you find a powerful mask that binds to you and gives you powers beyond a normal human. From there, you become a chieftain, build up your tribe, conquer the land and the other tribes that try to stop your progress often, as well as unlock the mystery of the mask and the ancient technology around the land. The game can run on a middle-of-the-road computer, however, I will recommend an above-average rig in order to run the game properly. This section might be a little bit longer than normal because there is an elephant in the room with the character beyond the creation. Firstly though, I would like to say that the creation itself is a bit mid. It has basic choices to create your character with very few hairstyles and other forms of customization, at least from the start. Outside of the initial creation, you have the option to tattoo yourself by unlocking the colors and styles from recruiting followers. The mask itself is also a character within the game that you get to customize as well. Shortly after you make your character, you can choose the base style of your mask, which does give you bonuses on your playstyle depending on which one you choose. As you progress, you can unlock a table that allows you to not only change the shape of your mask, given you unlock the option, but also add feathers, change paints, and so on. There are also some masks given to you as rewards for defeating the bosses within the game. I would say the overall creation is going to be a 3.5 out of 5, but now I need to get into the most contentious point of this part of the game. This seems to be talked about by most content creators covering this game. Your character that you create is absolutely useless and permanently crutched, as it is intended for this game to get rid of your main character right as you jump into the world and use the mask to control another NPC to gain its powers beyond your main character. Now, I don't have an issue with controlling the various characters as a mechanic. The issue comes down to the fact that your main character, the one that you get to customize and name, is discarded at the start. If you want it to play optimally, that is. You'll see in my gameplay that I don't change characters because I refuse to engage in this mechanic. But that again goes back to the point of your main character being purposely crutched and all of their skills locked at level 50. Another issue is that when you die, your main character is immortal and you can just run back, get your stuff, no issue. But an NPC that you control can and will die for good, at least until you unlock the mechanic to bring them back from the dead. But not only does that have a long cooldown, it resets the levels of the NPC, which makes it so I don't even want to fight as them, as I'll just lose anything on them regardless. And you can only save up to 3 NPCs at a time. The punishments are far more extreme than me just playing on my character who is weaker, but at least I can keep them and their stats after death. I would just have to go pick up my inventory again, which is not really a big issue if you've played survival games before. Even if you wanted to switch to another character for crafting, there really is no point because you could just automate the crafting and have your NPCs do it without you needing to change into them. What I'm getting at is, I don't really like the changing mechanic is forced upon you, yet the disadvantage is raised as well as the bonuses, so why bother? I really think as a form of criticism that they allow us to give us the option later on in the gameplay to sacrifice NPCs to gain the power that they have into our main character. We can unlock higher skill levels for your default character and so on, but that would be a form of progression that wouldn't be quite at the start of the game, more mid to end game. That way your main character isn't just discarded like trash. Anyway, that rant is over, so let's move on to the next section. So the game starts off with you waking up to see a tribe sacrificing people. You were set next to be killed, but before they get to sacrifice you, they are attacked by another tribe. This allows you, for your character, to escape into the jungle and find the mysterious mask. Now the east jungle is the starting zone. Nearly the whole zone is a spawning location, so you can either spawn up into the jungle or down at the beach. The beach is the safest spot but lacks all of the resources you will need to survive, while the jungle has a lot more resources but have more threats. At the early levels, you will feel useless, especially with combat, as everything will be much stronger than you, but as you start making stone weapons, you will notice a major increase in survivability. Gathering is fairly easy, you don't really need a lot of materials to craft up your starter home and a bonfire, and upon creating your first bonfire, you will gain your first follower automatically who joins you and helps you gather and fight. Besides that, there is a tutorial at the top left corner of the screen that gives you steps to follow in order to learn the mechanics of the game. You can optionally skip the steps, but by completing them you will get some bonus experience. I would say that it is annoying, for an example, that when you craft or kill something, and then later on that step in the tutorial comes up, you will have to do it again. But if it's something like you have to craft multiple items, it does seem to keep track before the step. So I don't know why you can't just do that for the rest of them, but overall, it's going to get a 4 out of 5 for this section. The reason it is dropped a little bit is because of the difficulty of combat if you happen to spawn in a bush dog or a boar spawn, but beyond that, the game is fairly good at teaching you the fundamentals and getting you used to the mechanics.
Ooh! Look at him! It's an alpaca.
What?
It's an alpaca.
Oh!
Look!
It's so cute! Can we take it home?
Yeah, but I think we need a pen for it.
Exploration is beneficial for growing in the game. You can find different resources within different parts and even specific areas of the map and regions, which promotes traveling together. The map is massive. You will feel as if you were in the jungle forever, as the jungle itself is made up of 3 large-sized areas. The East Jungle, which is your starting zone, the West Jungle, which is kind of like your level 10 to 15 area, and the Northern Jungle, which is the level 15 to 20 area, and that's just the first biome. Beyond that, you have the river biome, the swamp, the desert, the snowy mountains, the volcano. Within the biomes, you have all of their unique resources, but also various creatures to slay, from jaguars to wolves, bears, lions, even mammoths. The biomes themselves house many locations for you to unlock. First of all, you will have the map covered in smoke that you will need to unlock later on by finding the scouts and absorbing their knowledge into the mask. When you do this, you can unlock not only the region, but some of the locations within. Now I say some because there are still locations that are not discovered right away that you can still go out and find, from ruins to camps, beast lairs, and eventually barracks, villages, and dungeons. Traveling will become much easier once you find your first alpaca mount and use it to speed your way across the map. There are biome-specific teleporters that will help you once you unlock them, and after some progression, you can unlock a way to create a teleporter within your own base. Alpacas are not the only mounts, though. You can tame llamas and even jaguars. Hopefully there are more mounts added later on. Now I'm gonna go into the negative of this section, which I might repeat in a later section. But anyway, it is the fact that the leveling of your character is super slow. You may feel as if you are bouncing from location to location constantly to grind levels. Most of the camps and ruins are not really that exciting. You kill a few enemies, loot the chest, the larger camps, the barracks, even the beast lairs have more excitement to them and better rewards for the risk. The barracks at least feel a bit more unique, while all of the camps just kind of feel copy and pasted. They even utilize the same ruins, just maybe, flipped or something. And the barracks, besides being unique to each one, they are fun to explore and push through as if they were an outdoor dungeon. But we'll talk about more of that in the PvE section. For right now, I'm gonna give the exploration a 3.5 out of 5. There are a ton of locations to explore and conquer, but you do get a bit of burnout with running the camps constantly for a low experience gain. I had to turn up my experience gain on my solo server just to get anywhere, but the larger locations are really fun and to be talked about more in other sections. The survival is an odd one, so I would say in terms of like, eating, drinking, sleeping, the survival of this game is really a non-issue. It exists because you barely have to pay attention to it. If anything, you are more worried about making sure your village is fed before yourself. With that being said, I'm going to go into the growth systems. So first you will notice that there are 3 levels of progression. There are mask levels, character levels, and awareness levels. Mask level is what it sounds like. It is the power level of the mask itself, which can unlock new powers as it grows. Eventually, you can modify it and make it more powerful. There are also upgrades and other forms of masks you can equip, which will give you different abilities, like one that can turn you invisible, or another that can make you immune for a short period of time. Now you have character levels, which are for each character, including your NPCs. These levels really don't do much other than award points that you could put into things like more health, more stamina, better resistance, and so on. And lastly, you have awareness levels. This is your level. This level stays with you no matter what mask or character that you play as, and it controls the level of progression and learning new recipes. The layout of the recipe learning, or the talent points as I call them, is different to most games, but I grew to like the layout. Instead of vertical, it is horizontal and neatly categorizes the tiers of progression like the Stone Age, Bronze Age, Iron Age, so everything below the bonfire of that age will be for that tier of progression. And thank God that they have a system that if you want a recipe but didn't learn the precursor, you don't have to track it down. It will automatically learn it for you. Now you do have a limited amount of points as you level, so you will not be able to learn everything. However, you do get a healthy amount of points, so you can be self-sufficient, but having a friend will be beneficial to learn things that you cannot. Going back a bit to the eating and drinking, it isn't as important as the hunger goes down rather slowly on the default settings, though as it does get low, you will get negative effects, including blurry screens when you're hungry or dehydrated. So it is still beneficial to bring food and water, or broth, as it, fills up both hunger and thirst, so I don't need a water skin. But besides that, some food and drinks can give you bonuses. So that broth that I drink boosts my health for a short period of time. And there are other foods for attack bonuses, defense bonuses, and other forms of boosting. So making better food for you and your followers is still beneficial, as better food can also increase your followers' happiness, which we'll talk about more later. For now, I think I'm going to rate this survival section a 3.5 out of 5. The survival aspect itself is not really that important, but there are some decent progression for your character, and I do like the food buffs that you get from all the different recipes you can make. The building is fairly simple. You have a ton of the basic building pieces, from foundation, walls, roofing pieces, even some railings and pillars. Building itself is very easy to do. As long as you have the items, you can build the pieces and place them. And the various pieces will have different types built within. So for an example, if you wanted to build a wall, you only need to build that wall piece, but you could set it down as a wall, or you could set it down as a window or a door frame. So condensing the items like this is a great way to help with clutter, which this game already kind of suffers from. I myself built a large 3-story pyramid. All of my crafting is downstairs, my player room is on the 2nd floor, and the top floor is for my stone tablet, as well as some golden items that I made, kind of like a treasure room. Meanwhile, the outside of the pyramid, I have a menagerie, a farm, and even a little relaxation area for my NPCs, for that roleplay aspect. You can easily move or pick up items without having to rely on destroying and rebuilding. You can do this manually, or you could build the hammer tool and have it be quick keyed so it'll cut down the time from it. There is a base defense system, however, I think it was broken for my game. In the server settings, I saw that it was turned on, however, I was never raided once, nor could I find the meter that tells you how close you are from being raided, so I don't know if it was taken out for the early access or if it's just bugged for me, but I do know that there is a base defense system based on what I've seen in the demo, and it's supposed to work like this. You have defense items that you place in your base, which will help as they focus on taking down walls and doors, but the enemy will focus and aim for your bonfire. If there is anything in the way, they will target it, including your NPCs. You can have NPCs who don't fight and will head for an area that is more protected, while the warriors fight the enemies. You can also have your NPCs patrol your base to always keep watch for anyone or anything getting too close. Now for the crafting. The crafting is a bit hit or miss. On one hand, there are a lot of unique items to craft, some of which are just, fun items to play around with, but others also help your progression, build up your base. Though, on the other hand, I feel like there are a bit too many items which cause bloat. And I would say a nitpick of mine is that when you go into the crafting table, you will see all listed items for that table, including ones that you do not have unlocked. So it's just a big list of items. Now, luckily, when you do have the required material to build whatever item you want, the crafted items that you can build from the materials you have on you at the moment will be highlighted and sent to the top of the list. And you also have a search bar, which helps a lot to not having, to spend a bunch of time scrolling. Something I noticed is that for armor, weapons, and tools, you have a chance to make higher grade quality items, which will give better stats and durability. And if your skill level is high for whatever building type it is, whether it be crafting, harvesting, and so on, the higher level with a certain craft, you have a chance to make not only higher quality items, but a better chance at making more than one item per build. This is great because with better skill, you can make double the amount of higher quality items, which comes in handy when you have to arm all of your NPCs. Now, this isn't also just locked to your character. NPCs also can do this. So when you have them set to make things, they can make multiple of that item if they have a high enough skill for it. Now, in most cases, their skill is going to be much better than yours because, as I said before, you are capped at level 50 while most of them can go higher. So in a way, having them build for you instead is the optimal way to go. But not only for the skill levels, but also for the fact that you can have them set to build a specific item, for an example, and they will go to the chest where you have items stored, grab the necessary resources from the chest that they will need to build with, and it saves you so much more time instead of searching all of your boxes looking for the required items. The NPCs will just go to the various boxes as you have designated for the resources, grab whatever they need, and just get to work. On that same topic, your storage boxes you can set to host certain items from various categories, and not only that, you can set it so it can only host certain items. So after you come home from raiding an NPC camp, you simply need to press the quick drop button and all of the items will go into that chest, if they are labeled to do so. This is an amazing system, and very few games do this. I hope more games will switch to this method so you can quick drop into the chest, but also keep them organized. The NPCs will also follow this rule and drop items into the chests that are designated for whatever items that they are dropping off. There is a bit of an issue, however, where sometimes NPCs will either hold on to the items or place them into another chest that you didn't intend to. This has led to some missing items, so I had to combat this by making the workbenches so they would leave the crafted items there instead of trying to drop them off into a chest. And then I would just manually put them in the chest myself. Another issue is that when you have required items that an NPC needs, they sometimes refuse to grab the ones from the chest. This didn't happen all of the time, but for an example, I had an NPC set to manage the lights around my base and to keep the torches full of fuel. She complained about not having the fuel to do so constantly, yet I had chests filled with branches, logs, thatch for her to use, and the chest was set so she could take from it. It wasn't locked off, so it was kind of annoying at that. Now, switching topics onto the farming aspects. Raising animals and farming in this game can be super easy considering you have NPCs assigned to do all of the work for you, and while writing this review, they just made it so you can do this at level 10 instead of level 30. So it doesn't seem like every kind of fruit and veggie is farmable, and as I don't see a way to farm bananas for an example, but what you can farm is decent enough. You have plots that can fit many seeds within. They need to be only watered and fertilized once, and then they will grow in a short amount of time, roughly about half an hour or so in real time. I do find it a bit hard to manually place the seeds, but luckily the NPCs place them neatly and condensed as much as it can be. They will water and fertilize for you. Now, on one hand, the various crops will require certain fertilizers, so you will need to make the various types as needed, which luckily are not really that hard to make, just kind of annoying that you need to make multiple types at once. With the animals, small animals like capybaras, turkeys, and even piranhas, you can build pens for. The animals you capture don't have to be at the pen at all times, and they can roam your base if you wish them to. However, while they are in the pen, they have access to their food and water. NPCs can be assigned to them to keep the food and water trays filled, and another thing is that when pens allow animals to breed, eventually they will, fill up the pen. When that happens, the NPC in charge of taking care of them will butcher the animals as needed for meat, but they will keep in mind the male to female ratio and keep it balanced so they can continue breeding. Overall, I'm gonna give this whole system a 4 out of 5. The NPCs make building, crafting, and farming bearable as they automate it for you. I only had that nitpick of being a bit too much bloat for the items in the crafting benches, and the NPC sometimes, bugging out and placing items in the wrong storage or failing to realize they had supplies, but other than that, this is a overall very good system. Oh, that hurt a lot. I'm down. Why?
That's it. I'm getting my mouth.
You take him down.
Nope.
The PvE is a bit of a mixed bag. Now, if you're the kind of player that thinks that you can just rush in and hack and slash, you are going to have a really bad time. With the combat, you need to utilize strategy, being with your dodges, your blocking, having your NPCs tank damage for you while you pull back and put bandages on to heal. One thing that I like is that you can do perfect blocks, which will stun the enemy and give you a chance to go in and deal massive damage by either hacking your weapons at them or by performing a retaliation ability, which would do a special animation based on your weapon type. You have special abilities based on your level and weapon type that can be anywhere from shooting hook shots with your bow to throwing your spears and yoinking them to you. Some weapons can even have power-ups to buff you for a short amount of time, like the hammer. If you play with an NPC who has a higher skill level than your main, you can unlock newer abilities by leveling the specific skills of that weapon type and changing to what ability you wish to use. While not really Souls-like, it is beneficial to play smartly, as I mentioned before, but before I get into some examples, let's talk about the basics of PvE. Just like with the crafting skills, you as well as your NPCs have skills for the various weapons that you use, which will affect your damage. Your skills are capped at level 50, as I mentioned before, but if you are a min-maxer, it is beneficial to tame a strong NPC to use as your fighter, while taming NPCs can get you a small look into their stats while they are knocked out by seeing their HP count, stamina, and so on, but if you fully recruit them, you can see into their other buffs and debuffs. Their various stats are randomly generated, but I do like how it is a look into their backstory. They will have various buffs and debuffs with a story behind them based on where they are from, what they like, what they dislike, such as being part of a certain tribe that values strength, so they will have a strength bonus, or they grew up as a hunter, so they have a better bow skill. Maybe they like taking baths, so it makes them happy and gets their mood up. But they can also have dislikes, how they can dislike when the climate is hot, or they can dislike taking a shit. No joke, I have a character who gets into a bad mood when they take a shit. Now, you can elevate their moods by providing amenities for them, for your followers, such as dining tables with food, drinks. You have to provide baths for them, an outhouse. Sometimes they like pets, like I have another NPC who likes monkeys, so I have a pet monkey that walks around. They also need beds to sleep and so on. Make sure with your warriors, as well as yourself, that you outfit them in the best gear you can. Armor and weapons do have durability. With skills in the proper points, you have the ability to repair that broken gear, at least up until the yellow quality. As for red, I wasn't able to repair armor, but I was able to repair weapons, which is kind of odd. Now, with some types of gear, you do need special master crafters in order to make or repair them. You can find them in the various enemy tribe villages and barracks. But what's better is that some special armors can be made for just their looks, but use the same stats as other armors, so it is a form of built-in transmog. Now that you have your warriors and your gear, where can you fight? Well, out in the world. You have many locations to explore and fight, from the ruins, beast layers, camps, barracks, Generally, just have a few enemies or beasts or humans, but beast lairs will have elite creatures that you will need to defeat at some point in order to get the better rewards that they produce. There are camps with some enemy scouts that can help you uncover the map, but the barracks now, those are the ones you really want to take on. The barracks are much larger. They're almost like villages of the various types of clans and tribes, and since the early access had dropped, a good change that the developers had made is that the NPCs won't respawn so long as you are still in the village, as sometimes it will take you a while to chip away at the NPCs and make your way to the bosses. Now, some enemies have the ability to hear you, which will attract them to check on where they heard you from. From there, if they do see you, they will aggro. And they have the ability to call their friends, which can be dangerous if there's a lot of enemies within the same area. What you really need to do is watch out though for the fire beacons. Just like in various Far Cry games, if the signal is sent out, it will call for reinforcements. By destroying the fire signals, you can prevent this from happening, or at least stop it from continuing. Now, another thing is that while you are in the barracks have a chance to be raided by other factions, being, packs of dogs, or even a rival tribe. Once while I was raiding a Flint tribe barrack, they were being raided as well by the Claw tribe, so it made things a bit interesting. Now, towards the end of the barracks, you should find a few different boss battles. One of them would be the chieftain, the other would be the named leader, but they are more like a shaman if anything. The chieftain is generally easier to defeat, while the shaman at the end will be much more difficult. These are the enemies you really need to play smart with, as they have hard-hitting abilities, and even abilities that, can one-shot you if you're not careful. Having friends or having your NPCs tank for you while you do damage, or vice versa, is the best way of doing it. Now, beyond the barracks, there are dungeons which provide progressional items within, which is a major boost to you. The dungeons have more of a sci-fi feel to it, which help a lot with the environmental storytelling, and the enemies within are also unique to these locations, and they will also have other methods of fighting that are different from enemies that are outside of the dungeon. Now then, going back real quick to the shamans from the barracks that I mentioned before, they do drop worship containers. By looting these, you can use them to summon the main world bosses of the game. There are 5 of them in total as of right now. They each have their own unique abilities, as well as various difficulty scales, similar to Ark Survival Evolved's bosses within easy, medium, and hard mode. The higher level of challenge, the greater the reward. Now, I'm going to rate the PvE a 4 out of 5. Like I said at the start, it's not just a run-and hack-and-slash game, or else you will have a bad time of playing it, but by playing smartly, you will be just fine. I bumped it a bit down due to some issues mostly regarding your tribe followers, being the fact that, your followers sometimes die way too easy, even if you tame a strong warrior with high skills. Unfortunately, I lost a very good warrior with great stats shortly before I unlocked the stone tablet to res them. So yeah, it did kind of make me upset, but anyway, 4 out of 5. This is not really a story-driven game, as the starting cinematic was great for setting the mood of this land, as well as introducing you to finding your mask, but after that you don't really have any more story-driven moments with you or any of your tribesmen. Now, you can find environmental storytelling from inscriptions written on the wall of ruins that you can read, to the pyramids that look very futuristic within, and the dungeons with robots and technology. It kind of gives you the impression that this is a post-apocalyptic game, similar to Horizon Zero Dawn, but with the tech stuff more toned down and limited to certain areas. So the rest of the land feels very primal and tribal. For now, while this is in early access and in an unfinished state, I do not wish to give this section a score, and will wait for the 1.0 launch until I give this section a rating. This section will not be rated as there are no currently mods. However, I wanted to include this section instead of not including it because I wanted to inform you that the devs have stated that they wish for mods to be available for players when the game is further along. So with that being said, let's move on. The game is far from perfect though, as bugs are still there. Now, I did not have any moment of my game where the bugs have halted my progression. Many of them are more funny than anything, and most of the issues I had are mostly just from the follower system. Such as, sometimes pathing issues for my followers within the base cause them to run back and forth often. Sometimes they don't recognize chests that they can take or store in, so items will be placed elsewhere or be lost. Sometimes they will, skirt their duties since they don't take from the chests, and other times they will hold on to the items themselves. Also, those on deployment that follow you around and, fight with you, they occasionally would not attack. Like, they would be set to attack, and I would be in combat fighting something, and they would just kind of, stand there unimpressed. I think that's primarily most of what I saw. I can't really think of anything else, bug-related, besides a few graphical issues and such. So, the game was never really unplayable. It was just, the few issues that there were just kind of bothered me at times. So, with that, I'm gonna rate this section a 3.5 out of 5. My overall score for Soul Mask is going to be a 3.8 out of 5. It is an overall fun game with tons of stuff that I like about it. It reminds me a lot of Conan Exiles in its early days, and has the possibility to be an amazing game at full release. I do love how interactive the NPCs in your base are, and there are full plans to make them more lively in their off time. I do like the combat and how it makes you think and try to strategize before just rushing in, and the issues mentioned are not as detrimental as of right now. Hopefully the devs do hear back from the feedback and make changes as needed to improve this into a great game. And that is the end of this video. If you liked my review, please subscribe to this channel, as I will be making more in-depth reviews of open-world sandbox survival RPG games, including those that no one ever talks about from the deepest, darkest depths of Steam. Some games that even look like the muck at the bottom of my pond. If you have any suggestions for what game to do next, please comment below and like this video. Florida Gator Man out.